Nothing ever stopped me from dusting off my shoes.
Hi, and welcome to Run Tall with Tim. I'm Tim. Thanks for being here. I always appreciate the time that you and I get to spend together, so thanks for tuning in. And I hope wherever you are that you're happy, healthy, and staying safe. On today's video, we're going to be taking a real close look at a fun shoe by Nike. It's their Streakfly. Now this is a race shoe for 5K, 10K, and now that we have 50 miles in it, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to come back together and we'll take a look at the upper, we'll take a look at the midsole and the outsole, check for any kind of durability issues that might have crept up along the way. But before we do that, I thought it'd be fun to take you along with me out at my local high school where I was running some interval work. Now this is the first speed day session for a brand new training block that I just started. It's 16-week training as I prepare for the Detroit Marathon, which is coming up in October. And right after I completed running these intervals, I had a few thoughts about the Nike Streakfly that I wanted to share with you. So I just finished doing some speed work down at my local high school track, and I'm in the Nike Streakflies, and I thought I would just take a second and get the sweat out of my eyes because it's stinging. But then just share some of my thoughts with you immediately after the workout, because it's been a little while since I've run in these shoes, and I want to do a 50-mile review on them, and maybe I'll include this segment in that 50-mile review. I don't know yet. But when I ran in these initially, it was cold, it was winter, and so I was out in the streets. I couldn't come down to the track for a couple reasons. One, it was just covered in snow and ice. It hadn't been cleaned. And two, school is in session, and so it's much more difficult to get access to my high school track when high school is in session. And then the last time that I ran in these was a 5K race, and it wasn't a really good test of their ability at that time because I was injured, and so I couldn't really put the pedal to the metal. But regardless of that, I still managed to take second in my age group. I was running, and I don't remember exactly the paces, but I started out slow because of my injury, and I hadn't intended to race at all. I was just going to run it and have a little fun with it and try to protect my ankle and my shin splints that was bothering me at the time. So I started out really going out with the walkers and the joggers and going at a really slow, 8-minute mile pace, something like that. But after the first mile, I realized that everything still felt pretty good in these shoes, which I was really happy about. So I picked up the pace, and I don't know, I was running like a maybe 6:40 minute mile, something like that. You guys can check it out if you want to. It's the Tom Izzo 5K race, and I posted some results of that race and some of my thoughts and footage of it. But anyway, I was able to, like I said, take second in my age group. So these are quick shoes. There's no doubt about that. I think that they are a 5K shoe. And that's because, as long as you're up on your forefoot, there's a lot of speed there. And it feels really good. There's plenty of cushion for that. But if you're running at a slightly slower pace, or for me, in this case, when I was running intervals, and I was in that recovery time, that minute and a half between the intervals, and I slowed down to like a 9-minute mile pace where I was more midfoot striking, it was not super comfortable. So I think these are, speed work shoes like I used them today. Definitely a good 5K choice if you're looking for a fairly inexpensive, as far as race shoes go, inexpensive shoe to run a 5K. I think these are a great choice for that. Now, if you have the ability, I think maybe the Next Percent 2 might be a more versatile option for races, because you can go 5K, 10K. I ran a marathon in the Next Percent 2 and was real comfortable and set a pretty damn good time. For me, it was my first marathon, and you guys can check that out. It's the Bayshore Marathon. I posted some race results of that as well. So anyway, those are my initial thoughts here right after doing some interval work. I finished the workout, finished my cool down. Now I'm just enjoying a nice slow walk around my high school track. It's been so long since I've been down here. Because of my injury, I had to really reduce the amount of running that I was able to do. And then with running the marathon over Memorial Weekend, which was last, end of May, it took me 10 days for my calves to recover from that marathon. And they were hurting. They were sore, and I didn't expect that. And then when I got my calves back in line where I could run again, shortly after that, I had a half marathon trail race, and I ran it. Took first in my age group, woohoo! So I was really excited about that. I ran in the Hoka Tecton X, which is an awesome road to trail race option for you. At least it is for me anyway. But after that, my calves were sore again for about 3 days for all that uphill and downhill work that I was doing. So for pretty much the month of June, I wasn't able to run for 10 days after the marathon and 3 days after that half marathon. So 13 days, almost almost half the month of June was just spent in recovery. So anyway, I kind of digressing a little bit. I'm going to kick it back to myself and we'll talk more about the Nike Streakfly. So let's take a close look at the Nike Streakfly after 50 miles. And again, we're going to be checking for some durability issues that may or may not have cropped up. Now, these are shoes that I purchased with my own money. They retail for $160 US. They are incredibly lightweight. They came in at 5.8 ounces for US men's size 9 in my scales, or 163 grams. So let's start. We'll take a look at the midsole and see how that's holding up. And just as a reminder, it's full ZoomX foam here. And they have 32 millimeter stack height in the heel and 26 millimeters up in the forefoot for a 6 millimeter offset. And then within the foam is a carbon fiber shank rather than a carbon fiber plate. Now it has to have a lot of flexibility because it is just a shank and not a plate, so you can see that that flexes pretty easily there up in the forefoot of the shoe. There's still lots of energy return that you're getting from that ZoomX foam, but it is noticeably less than what you're going to find, for example, in the Next Percent 2, which I've been running in quite a bit recently, so the contrast was pretty stark and pretty clear right off the bat to me that I was definitely feeling like I was lower to the ground. And at times, when I was running those intervals out at the school, that these felt a little bit flat when I was striking the ground and moving through my gait cycle. And by flat, I mean it just seemed to compress a little bit more quickly, and I could feel that ground contact a little faster. When I'm in the Next Percent 2, I can't feel the ground contact at all. All you can feel is all of that energy return from the ZoomX foam, and that carbon fiber plate is really pretty aggressive. One of the more aggressive carbon fiber plated shoes that I have that wants to really bounce you or pop you through your gait cycle as you're running. So, but these are very enjoyable to run in. I think they do make a great 5K shoe, as I mentioned, and definitely you could use these to run a 10K. But for me, because I own the Next Percent 2 and there's still some good mileage left in those midsoles and that carbon fiber plate in those shoes, that if I have a choice between running in the Nike Streakfly and picking up the Next Percent 2 for a 10K, for example, I'm probably going to pick up the Next Percent 2 because I found that carbon fiber plate is just a bit more aggressive and just offers a bit more energy return, and there's just a lot more foam there to keep your feet comfortable over the course of those miles. So how durable is the foam and how long is it going to last? Well, all I can say right now is so far so good. You know, I have a little over 50 miles on them, and they still feel about as good as they did when I first ran in them back in the winter and early spring. So still lots of energy return, lots of pop. The one thing I have noticed is there's a lot of pretty deep compression marks in the foam already. So that does call into question, you know, are they going to be able to go much more than about 100 miles? Well, you know, as a racing shoe, if you compared it with something like the Next Percent 2, where you're only expected to get about 100 racing miles in them, sure, you can use them to train after that. But if you want the full effect of the shoe, you're really only going to get about 100 miles of racing. I would say that I'm guessing that these are going to be about the same, but I'm going to run these up to 100 miles, and we'll revisit that at that time. So let's flip these over and we'll take a look at the outsole and see how that's holding up. And here you can see that the outsole rubber and around the heel looks fine. I don't really see any wear marks at all. And then the rubber from the midfoot all the way up through to where your toe off, that all looks really good as well. The part that concerns me somewhat is the exposed ZoomX foam here that lies between, right in that midfoot section of the shoe, because it looks like somebody took some sandpaper and just really roughed it up there. So I am a little concerned about the durability of that exposed ZoomX foam, especially since I have been running down at my local high school track. That track does seem to want to chew up my shoes pretty quickly at times. So it's something I'm just going to have to be aware of, that, you know, maybe I can find some places where I can do some of that speed work in these back out on the pavement, or maybe an empty parking lot or something like that if I'm just doing some speed repeats or something along those lines, just to try to save that midsole a little bit. But overall, I would say the outsole is doing fine, especially those areas that are covered in rubber, but the ZoomX foam that is exposed does show a little bit of wear. So taking a look at the upper, now it's performed really well over the last 50 miles. Of course, in the winter, it's going to be nice and cool and breathable, but I felt like that it was lots of airflow when I was down at that track, and it kept my feet nice, comfortable, and cool. I had a nice lockdown across the midfoot section of the shoe, so I think they did a great job with that. The tongue is thin, but I didn't notice the laces cutting across the top of my foot, so I didn't need to have any more padding than what it does have. That tongue is somewhat sewed into the upper, so it's got a gusset there. It's not moving around. It's not going anywhere, and I didn't have any issues with it bunching up either. So it's really comfortable that way. And there's no rips or tears. I didn't have any hot spots at all. Plenty of padding in the heel collar and around the tab to keep you comfortable. It's not a plush shoe, it's a racing shoe. So you can see that it's kind of this bumper style of padding there. But I didn't have any sore spots, no hot spots. It felt really comfortable all the way around on my Achilles and on the sides of my ankles as well. And then the heel counter of the shoe, you know, there's just a little bit of structure there, so I can push forward on it pretty easily. If I put it on my shoulder and give it this pinch test, there's a little more when I try to pinch it together here, but it's plenty there to keep my heel in place. So I didn't have any heel slippage either side to side or up or down. Felt like the heel pocket was just about right for me. So I think Nike did a really good job with the upper and having just the right amount of padding to keep you comfortable out when you're out running, but not so much so that it's adding weight that you don't need. So overall, I think the Nike Streakfly is a solid 5K and 10K racing option for you, and they're holding up about as expected, or at least how I initially thought that they would. And that's as a 5K, 10K race shoe, getting about 100 miles of racing with some additional training miles after that. The kicker is that these cost $160 US. Right now, because Nike's coming out with some new models, that I've seen the Nike Next Percent 2 on sale for as little as $175. For about $15 more, you can get maybe a more versatile shoe. And I just picked up a pair of the original Alpha Flies for about $200. So about $40 more, you can really run with the big dogs, as they say. So I would say if you're considering these between these two, maybe take advantage of some of the sales that Nike's got going on right now and take a real hard look at the Nike Next Percent 2 because it's simply a more versatile shoe. But if you're looking for just a solid 5K shoe, maybe 5K is where it's at for you, then I think the Nike Streakfly is a really solid option. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, right here on Run Tall with Tim.
Out in stormy weather, I might have the blues, but nothing ever stopped me.